So on paper, last season was Coventry City's first step backwards under Mark Robins because having reached the playoff final in 22-23, losing in the final to Luton, they finished ninth last season after another slowish start that they always seem to recover from, don't they? But I think while it was a step backwards in some ways, I think we can look at it as a step forward in others because in 22-23 they were heavily reliant on loan deals, which can be really useful for a point in terms of short-term individual quality, but in terms of long-term squad building, I think the investment in permanent assets that are going to develop with the club can be a really valuable thing for Coventry City, and that's what I think maybe puts them in a better position ahead of this season than maybe they were ahead of last, because some of these younger players that they've invested in are another year down the line in terms of their development. Lots of talent coming through at Coventry City in that sort of early to mid-20s age bracket, and they've also got to bring in Ephraim Mason-Clark, who came in January, but was then loaned back out to Peterborough United. Now he's officially a Coventry City player this season. So lots to be excited about. And can they push for the playoffs again under Mark Robins? That's what we're going to discuss on this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to the latest EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive, one of 72. We're doing club by club across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. The full setup loaded for League Two, a few for League One as well, to YouTube and to Spotify. So go and check those out and subscribe. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by Wardy from Sky Blues Extra. Good morning, Wardy. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Morning, Gav. Good to be on.
Coventry City are in a great place at the moment, aren't they?
I'd say so, yeah. Based on the last sort of 15, 20 years, it's definitely sort of a very good position we're in. So we've had some troubled times in the last few years, but it's been a pretty sharp sort of improvement, obviously, with new ownership and obviously Mark Robins at the helm. Got ourselves very sort of secure in the championship and a bit more than that, really, in that. So we had that playoff push that you mentioned last season. And then the season just gone, didn't quite improve on our position. But I think what we've been saying as fans is, even though, the league position didn't improve, I feel like we've progressed a lot behind the scenes. You referenced like the loan players, we don't have a load of them nowadays. We've got a lot of players on like 3-4 year contracts. So it feels like we're heading in the right direction. And hopefully this season, I think we want to even look maybe just slightly higher than that. And push towards those top 2 spots, and I don't see any reason really why we can't do that with some of the quality we're signing.
Wow, very interesting. What would be your case then for Coventry City pushing for the top 2? Because I suppose instinctively we might put them in a playoff conversation rather than that top 2 conversation, just because of the structure of the championship and the clubs coming down from the Premier League having parachute payments and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think really the quality that we've been signing, I think we've definitely improved the squad from last season. I think like the front 3 now looks very, very exciting. I think there's lots of like goals, and I can see and I think having because we had a very slow start last season, didn't we? And players like Haji Wright, Ellis Sims, they took a while to get up to speed. We obviously signed people like Victor Torp in January. We haven't seen him sort of have a full pre-season and get up to speed. So I think we have got a lot of quality, and I think if we can have a quicker start than last season, I think we can hopefully maybe follow in the mold of an Ipswich and kind of get ourselves right up there early on. I also think I feel like the championship won't be as strong next season. I feel like I think it was very, very strong last year, very, very tough to get in those top 2, and even the playoffs as we found out. But I feel like the teams coming down, I think, have some troubles. I know, Sheffield United are even starting on -2, and that's not a huge deficit, but they have got some financial troubles. And Luton, I don't necessarily think will be as strong as they were the season they went up. So I think there's a bit of an opportunity. I'm not saying we're going to storm it by any means, but I'd certainly like to see us be at least in the top 6, but hopefully more towards 2nd and 3rd places, and at least in that sort of fighting position.
Interesting. Well, I suppose that the person responsible for those sort of expectations being raised, if you like, is Mark Robins. Talk to me about how he's been able to. What are his main qualities that have allowed him to lift Coventry City from the fourth tier to promote talking about as a top two aspiring championship side over the 7 years?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and actually the other topic probably is around sort of AD Vivesh, our assistant who
Mhm.
actually left in the last couple of weeks. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting one. But yeah, because I think like AD was probably the brains behind the operation a lot of the time in terms of the team we put out, some of the tactical decisions, the coaching of young players, the development, some of the young players we've got from Chelsea, for example, with his connections there. So he's been a huge part of it as well. I think Robbins obviously has been influential on the pitch, but I feel like he's just been a sort of well-rounded kind of manager of the club and kind of
Mhm.
galvanized everything together. Um, it's obviously well documented what a mess we were in kind of probably only, less than 5 years ago, really,
Yeah.
in kind of doldrums of League Two. And yeah, I feel like Mark Robbins has just kind of brought everyone together, the fans. You see a lot of clubs where the manager changes constantly and it does, you don't really get any kind of consistency. No one feels very kind of settled with a clear vision. I feel like, and with Doug King coming in as owner as well, I feel like we
Mm.
actually have a bit of a vision now. And that's why, we are talking about potentially trying to get into the automatics because we, Doug King wants that. He's talking about, he wants to be in the playoffs at least 3 out of the next 5 seasons. He's set up a scheme where fans get like a free season ticket if we get into the Premier League. That is the absolute goal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I feel like under Sisu, it was always we were just always scraping by. We were always
Yeah.
just there was a lot of talk about incremental improvement year on year, and to get promoted, you need a little bit more than incremental improvement. And it
Wardy,
feels now.
can I just touch on that thing that you mentioned there about Doug King's scheme? So he's going to give free season tickets to fans if you get into the Premier League.
Yeah, so how it works is our standard season ticket price is £400,
Okay.
and he introduced a scheme. I think it was the season before last, or the season just gone for this, but the season tickets came out the year before,
Mhm.
and you could basically pay 500 to an extra £100, locked for 5 years, so the price is locked in, and then if we get promoted, yeah, you get a free season ticket. So it's a really
Wow.
good scheme, and it kind of means that people are like investing a little bit more in their season ticket,
Yeah.
which obviously in turn helps the club out, helps with the wage bill and everything like that.
Sure.
But you obviously get that reward when you go up. So
Mm.
yeah, really, really good scheme. I think a lot of people have bought into it. I think we've
Mm.
sold over 21,000 season tickets in general for this season coming. So
Yeah.
it's clearly the excitement levels are very, very high.
Well, do you know
Um,
what I find so refreshing about that, Wardy? Is I was actually talking to an Aston Villa fan yesterday who was saying that basically more of, even though Witton and Aston isn't a particularly well-off area, what they're doing at Villa is they're basically um, taking away some of the standard seats and making some of them premium seats so that they can charge people top whack for Premier League football. So it's basically, in summary, it's getting more and more corporate at Premier League level because clubs actually aren't really caring about the fans and believing in the difference that they can make. Whereas actually Coventry City seem to be really helping fans and finding ways of making it affordable for them. So absolutely all credit to them for that.
yeah. I think it's brilliant, and they froze the prices as well for this season. So I think I think Doug's really, because obviously he came in and he had probably a year to 18 months just to kind of assess things and analyze things and see where there are opportunities. And yeah, he's made a few little changes, like he's reduced the away end, for example, so we can get more home fans in. I think he's really spotted that opportunity that if you can get 28 to 30,000 in there every week, it'll make a massive difference and really push us on. Whereas back in the day we'd be giving away fans like 5,000 tickets and we just
Mm.
we weren't playing to our own strengths. Obviously, you need the fan base there to be able to do that. But no, I think he's making some really good changes. He does make bold moves at times as well, and he has made a few little changes to like the family zone and things like that to make things a little bit stricter and make sure people don't take advantage of like cheaper tickets. But I think overall, people are pretty happy with what he's doing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, all credit to him and all credit to Mark Robbins. So let's have a look at the squad then, Wardy. I suppose the goalkeeping position to start with, you've got Ben Wilson there and you've got Brad Collins. Collins obviously started well, and I think he kept a few clean sheets when he came into the side, and you had that back four or that sort of trio with him, Thomas and Kitching, sort of reunited, if you like, from their Barnsley days. But would you say Ben Wilson's still first choice?
It's a really difficult one, the goalkeeping situation. I think if you ask most Coventry fans, we feel like we need a new goalkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Collins seemed to be kind of the number one for last season. He played most of the games. There were some strange situations last year. I think we played Stoke away in a random league game in maybe sort of February, March time, and Ben Wilson just came into the side for no sort of apparent reason. You couldn't really, didn't seem to be an injury or anything. Quite strange. And then they kept sort of switching around and swapping. You could never really predict who was going to play. We
Mhm.
thought it was based around the cup, but then there were times when, Collins was playing in the cup anyway. So it was all very strange with the goalkeeper situation last year. And then towards the end of the season, Collins, didn't really have a great time, to be honest. Something just seemed to kind of ruin his confidence, really. I mean, we obviously had the cup game away at Wembley against United. Obviously, a
Mhm.
brilliant day out, but for some reason, since those penalties, he just seems to be lacking a lot of confidence. He made a few errors in our final home games. I mean, everyone was very, very tired, very mentally and
Mhm.
physically tired from that game and the cup run in general, and all the games we had to pack in. But yeah, he didn't look like the same goalkeeper. Ben Wilson, really like the guy, but I feel like he is kind of a number two, really. Although he did play pretty much the whole season that we got into the playoffs.
Mhm.
We did have a very, very strong back three that season, though. So I feel like we need a new goalkeeper,
Okay.
and then probably have one of those two as backup. I feel
But then
like
the other one, I think either Ben Wilson or Brad Collins would feel like they're too good to be third choice goalkeeper, though. So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've seen rumours that we're happy to have three, and we did have three last year. We also had Simon Moore around the building as well. He's obviously gone
right.
to Sunderland now. So having Simon Moore as a third choice keeper was kind of a strange situation as well. But
Mm.
I don't feel like we need three keepers on the books really. I get the feeling. I mean, Mark
I mean,
Robbins can
it's
be.
one thing. It's one thing, Wardy, if your third choice goalkeeper is 40 and also a goalkeeping coach or something like that, but or a bit of a veteran. But for goalkeepers who are still of a decent age, where they feel like they can and of a decent ability, I think they'd probably want to find another opportunity. I imagine anyway.
Yeah, I know, I 100% agree. So it's a bit of an interesting one. My gut feel is like Robbins can be quite stubborn with things, and he did pay money for Brad Collins, so
Mhm.
I feel like he'll want to stick with him for now. Whether that means in a number one capacity or whether it means he sticks with him as number two. Like you say, maybe he wouldn't want to be number two, and the terms of his contract he signed were to be number one. So the goalkeeper situation is a really interesting one, but we need to get it right because it's a really important position and it did cost us points at times last season.
Mhm.
So I really want to make sure we get that position right for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So formation then, Wardy. You played 3-4-1-2 a little bit last season, but I'm also wondering if you'd want to get players like Sakamoto, Ephraim Mason Clark, Hadji Wright. I think Rodriguez, who you signed, is also a winger. Actually, I'm wondering if it might be more like a 4-2-3-1 next season.
Yeah. I think it will look like a 4-2-3-1 to be
Mhm.
honest. Yeah, yeah, I think a big kind of turning point last season was when we switched from the back three
Mhm.
to the back five to the back four. I think that was at Stoke at home. Big turning point for us. We were kind of crying out for it on our podcast because you could just see the personnel we had would lend itself better, and it kind
Mhm.
of didn't make sense because with players like Sakamoto, we had these wide players and we needed to utilize them more. So yeah, I can definitely see that this season. Very excited by Ephron Mason Clark down the left. Obviously Sakamoto down the right. He was injured for a lot of last season, which meant we had to play. We had to play um, Van Avac down the right.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit out of position. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. And then in the middle, it is very interesting. We've obviously got a few options there. You've got Sheaf and Eccles. You've got Torp, who I think could play more defensively, but possibly even a bit further forward in like the 10 position. You obviously
Just
got
signed
Casey
Jack
Palmer,
Rodoni.
Rodoni as well, who I think looks like a natural number 10. So yeah, we've got a good few options in the midfield.
I don't know.
Obviously,
I think Jack Rodoni could play deeper because he was definitely more of a number 10 when he was at AFC Wimbledon. But
yeah,
actually at Huddersfield, he was converted in more to a do it all round sort of midfielder. So he did play deeper and a bit more like an 8. I think he's got that versatility to play deeper.
which is good, which is what we need as well, because obviously we've lost Liam Kelly, who obviously was getting on a bit, but did play a bit of a key role last season. Towards the end, when we had a few injuries, we had some very tired legs from the cup run. He came in and played a role, and he seems to have done that each year. Really seems to sort of come in towards the end and kind of help us out where we need it. So we do need those options in the midfield. People talking about potentially signing another midfielder. I think we've got a few. There's Jamie Allen is obviously still around the place as well. So I feel like we're probably quite set in the middle of the park at the moment. I think what we do need to look at is a second choice right back. I think we maybe need a new left back as well, although that's gone a little bit quiet. And I think we probably need a striker as well. Obviously, Matty Godden going out to Charlton. I think we probably need to look at another striker as well. And I potentially can see Mark Robins maybe playing 2 up top at times next season. It's something we didn't
Really,
see a
even
lot of.
with the number of sort of wingers that you've got and players who could play in those 3 positions behind a main striker.
Yeah, possibly. I could see him maybe going like a 4-1-2-1-2 type situation next year at times. We haven't really had the chance to see Haji Wright and Ellis Sims play up top together too much, so I think that's a possibility. But yeah, I think.
But then would you sign Rodriguez, who I believe is a winger, if you're planning to play a 4-4-2 diamond?
No, I don't think we'd play a 4-4-2. I think we'd still play with wider players. But I think possibly like one CDM, a 10, then wingers, and then potentially 2 strikers in certain games is an option as well.
Okay.
But yeah, time will tell on that. But no, I think we'll probably set up similar to last year with the players we're signing. It it looks to be looking that way. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see. Obviously, it maybe means that Haji Wright could play as a striker a bit more. He was obviously down the left a lot of last season.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's looking exciting.
Yeah, you've got options there, certainly. Excuse me. Ephron Mason Clark, I think, is a really exciting addition. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think the fact that he actually signed in January means that people aren't talking about him with the same sort of fanfare. It's like because that he's signing, but actually, I do think he can make a real difference because he was fantastic for Peterborough last season.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he looks a really good player. Obviously, quite a strange one because we signed him in Jan. I think that Robins wanted him in January, but Darragh McAntony, kind of put his foot down and said he promised the manager that they wouldn't lose anyone for their playoff run, for their playoff challenge. So yeah, obviously didn't get him when we wanted him, but it was quite cool because we could all kind of keep an eye on him and watch him last season. Obviously watched him in the playoffs, and yeah, looks to be a really, really good talent. Peterborough obviously very, very good at bringing players through. So he looks to be a really good player, and if he develops at the rate that players often do at us, then yeah, I think we can turn him into a superstar for sure.
Yeah, hopefully. I think what I'm really excited about with Mason Clark is that he's got the physicality to step up to the level as well as the ability, and I think he's got can produce a range of different finishes as well. So I think he'll provide goals as well. So that's only going to help. A bit of a step up for him, obviously, because a couple of years ago he was playing in the National League for Barnet. So obviously you don't want to set the bar too high straight away, but I definitely think he can come in and make a real difference. Talk to me about how important Ben Sheaf's going to be this season, Wardy, and do you think you'll keep hold of him?
Yeah, really, really important player for us, Ben Sheaf. Again, another one that, a diamond in the rough really that we found. Obviously signed him from Arsenal a few years ago. Initially we had him on loan and then we made it permanent. He's been like so key for us. You know, you see he does have the odd sort of niggly injuries, and he'll be out for a couple of games at a time, and you really notice the difference in our team when he's not in there. He really kind of, you know, controls the midfield and keeps us ticking along. Yeah, he's a very important player. You know, the sense we get is that bids are going to come in for him,
Mhm.
but I think where we might benefit is that I think Doug will put quite a high value on him, and I also feel like I really rate Ben Sheaf, but I'm not sure if he'd walk straight into a Premier League team and start for them.
Mhm.
And I feel like he is someone who takes his football and his progression very, very seriously. And, you know, like, for example, we see videos of him doing his own personal training over the summer, you know, before the players come back. And he's like a real, true, like, professional, so dedicated to it. And I feel like someone like him, I think he just wants to be playing every week. He doesn't want to be sat on a bench and, you know, obviously he'd get a big pay increase, but I don't think he'd want to do that. I think, and I'm not sure if he's 100% ready to walk into a Premier League side. So you'd probably be looking at a Championship maybe side. Obviously, there's been rumours of like Luton. There's been rumours of Ipswich as well. And like, I know whilst they are in the Premier League, would he want to go with the, you know, potential of just coming straight back down? Obviously, you know, we saw what happened to Gus Hamer
Mhm.
with Sheffield United. So that's just my gut feeling, is that I'm not sure if a bid high enough or if the right kind of club will come in for him. And personally for him and with the money for the club, it maybe won't quite happen. I could be completely wrong. But yeah, Doug will definitely set a high bar for Ben Sheaf, because I think if he did go, we'd want some serious cash to be able to replace him, and,
Mhm.
you know, and more. So
What do you think he's got to add to his game in order to be a Premier League ready player?
it's a good question. I don't think there's any like bad parts of his game. I think the Premier League's just such a step up, isn't it? You know, we've seen it with quite a few players that have made the jump up, and it's just a very, very, very tough league. Yeah, there's not too much I would say. I think he's got that kind of like Declan Rice look about him, so I think he can make it at some point. Who knows? Maybe someone will come in for him and
Mhm.
he'll, you know, shine in the Premier League. But um, yeah, I think the worst case scenario being a decent amount of cash for him, and then we'd be
Mhm.
able to. I'm sure there'd be some contingency in place
Mhm.
to replace him.
Yeah, well, I think what's great is that you're now in a position to hold out for for the big fees for your top players. So that's really exciting. Milan van Ewijk, Wardy. I think he was probably one of your best players last season, and he's certainly very exciting to watch and can get forward really well, can he?
Yeah, really, really exciting player. Obviously, a bit of a strange season for him, because yeah, he started really well, obviously in the right back position, and was getting
Mhm.
very, very far forwards. And then because of the Sakamoto injury, he, you know, Van Avak then had to kind of play right wing,
Mhm.
which I don't think he was as comfortable at. And it kind of like the balance of our team wasn't quite right with that. But you know, he still did a brilliant job. Yeah, he's a really good player, very, very quick, very dynamic down the right wing. So I think, yeah, the combination of him and Sakamoto is really exciting, and probably we didn't see as much of it as we wanted to last season.
Mhm.
So like I said, if we can start quickly and those two really, because I think
Mhm.
Sakamoto will be fully up to speed. I think he was
Yeah.
back in training even just before the season finished. So
Mhm.
um, very excited to see the link up between those two. And like I said, if we can sign maybe even a slightly more dynamic left back as well, then on both
Mhm.
wings you've got it's pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, what I like about Van Uyck, he can obviously get into good positions very quickly, and he's got that sort of that speed about his game. But I think his link-up play is really good, and I think when you get players around him, he can give it and go. And so if you've got Sakamoto on the flank, and you've got maybe another midfielder overloading somebody like Jack Rodoni, possibly, I think that could be a really exciting combination. But then on the left, yeah, I'm thinking if we're holding Coventry to sort of top two challenging standards, which you're the one who set the bar that high, Wardy, so
I've
I'm
said it
holding
out.
you.
It's out there now.
I'm holding you responsible for this. um, Bidwell's a very dependable, consistent Championship left back or wing back, but I'm not sure that Jay De Silva, Bidwell, or Burrows are going to quite get you to that level. So again, like you say, is that going to be a really an important area to try and add to, and maybe offload one or two as well?
I think so. I mean, coming into the transfer window, we all kind of expected us to sign a left back, which meant we thought someone might go, like Bidwell potentially could go, because I think if we did sign, I mean, there was rumours of like Harrison Burrows from Peterborough. I don't think he's gone
Oh
anywhere
yeah,
yet. I think
yeah. I think
there was
I've
rumours
heard
of
he's linked with
Sheffield
Sheffield
United
United,
or
but
yeah, yeah. So yeah, interesting. I
I
think I
tell
read
you
somewhere
what,
that
I think
Preston
if I
were
was
putting a bid
Harrison
in.
Burrows, if I was Harrison Burrows, I'd be quite keen to look at going to Coventry rather than Sheffield United, because I think Sheffield United have got some big problems there, whereas Coventry are actually in a more stable position.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously he'd be linking up with Ephron Mason Clark, which you'd think would be attractive for him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and what actually set those rumours off was that when we signed Ephron in January, there was a podcast that Darren McAntony was on, and he kind of alluded that Coventry had like first dibs on one of their players in the summer.
Mhm.
So then obviously as what happens is everyone starts speculating on who that might be, and Harrison Burrows seemed to be like seem to make sense, and that we'd
Mhm.
probably want a left back. So yeah, maybe there is still interest. I even read somewhere that Preston were going to put a bid in. I don't know whether that's just Dara getting the rumours circulating to get the value up or whatever, because I know that often happens these days. But I don't know. There was also rumours of Sam McCallum as well. I think Sheffield United might even be interested in him. They're clearly really in the market for a similar player to us. Um, I really like Jake Bidwell. I thought he had a really good season last year. Um, it was funny because actually he had a better season as a left back than he did as a left wing back, and he got further forwards. In fact, seemed a lot more comfortable, which seemed a little bit contradictory, really. So I'm a big fan of him. You've also got Jada Silva as well, who is a bit more of a left wing back than a left back.
Mhm.
So doesn't naturally kind of fit into that starting
But
lineup
but
formation.
then Wardy, is he he's probably better going forward than he is defensively, but is he even productive enough going forward to kind of justify that sort of free reign, if you like?
What Jake
Jada
Bidwell,
Silva, yeah.
Jade Silva, yeah, he's an interesting one. I mean, what against United in the cup, he came on in the second half and had the game of his life. He was
Mm.
absolutely unbelievable. It was funny because obviously a lot of my mates who wouldn't normally watch Coventry obviously watched the game, and everyone was like, "Oh, that Jade Silver guy is unbelievable." And I was like, "Yeah, he had a good game, but he's not like that every week." But
Yeah.
so yeah, he's an interesting one. Obviously, we signed him for free, I think, in the summer last year. So um, yeah, he had a really good start to last season. The first 10 games, he was really really good, but kind of faded away a little bit. And then obviously when we changed formation, it didn't quite suit him as much. So yeah, the left back position is a really interesting one for us. I still would quite like to see us bring someone in. And my only worry with that is that I feel like that would mean Jake Bidwell would say, I want to move on, and because I think he deserves to play, he deserves to be starting for someone
Mhm.
every week for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure if you did want to offload Jake Bidwell, there would be interest in him because he's been such a reliable player at this level. Ellis Sims, then Wardy, he took a while to catch fire, but he's starting to feel like he could be dangerous this year.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, obviously had a bit of a slow start to the season. I think he's just one of those. He's a confidence player.
Mm.
I think when he really believes in his own ability, then he can do whatever he wants. And he was really lacking confidence early in the season. He was really struggling, but then sort of got a couple of goals under his belt, and there was no stopping him from there. I mean, towards the end of the season, he was scoring some unbelievable goals. Obviously, there was the one against United, which people would have seen, the sort of half volley. Scored a worldie away at Huddersfield as well. So yeah, just started to look really, really confident, and you felt like you could really rely on him. Um, just some of the stuff he did, like not scoring himself. Like I think of the Wolves goal, the winner away at Wolves in the cup, when some brilliant work to kind of shift his body and to kind of get the ball into the right position for Hadji to bury that. I mean, that goal, as much as it was a great finish from Hadji Wright, I think the work from Callum O'Hare and Ellis Sims made that such a good goal. So yeah, he's turning into a really good player. Again, like I've said with a few people, I hope he can just have a very fast start to the season. I hope he can carry some of his confidence into the season. obviously the fans are right behind him now and really believe in him. So would love to see him start banging them in. And then I think there's no stopping him from there, really.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Lincoln City fan Jake Tonga said, "Keep them away from Ethan Arahon, please, Gab, please." So I'd just like to say, if Ben Sheaf goes, he's the one you want to go for. But I wanted to. We've already said that a top six finish is the expectation this season, and you want to try and be in that automatic promotion mix. So. In terms of are we looking at Mark Robins and how good a job that he's done over the last 7 years? Would you say that's the biggest reason to believe that that you can get there?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's we've had consistent year-on-year progress. I know our league, like I said at the start of the show, I know our league position didn't necessarily improve, but there were tons of improvements and things that we could look at as fans that we'd count as improvements. So I think the fact
I think to me, Wardy, what stood out was like the gap between the year before. I think you had like your best players, like two or three great players, and then like there was a bit of a drop off into your sort of sixes and sevens. But now I think that there's actually a bit of a leveling out where you don't necessarily have you don't necessarily have a Hamer or a Yoker. A Jokeres, although there's players who we think could develop into that sort of bracket. But I actually think last season on the sort of the majority of your squad were actually better. It's just that you didn't necessarily have those sort of star players.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think the year before, like we were very, very reliant on Jokeres and Hamer, and they 100% dragged us into the playoffs and got us to the final as well.
Yeah.
They were very, very influential, obviously, in the semi-final. So yeah, and then last season did look a lot more balanced. And again, like not relying on as many loan players, having a settled kind of defence with permanent players. So yeah, it's definitely balanced out now. And now hopefully we're just going to have a few, because I feel like we've gone from having 2 star players to probably like 5 or 6 that can become really key star players. I think Efron Mason Clark has the potential to be one of those. Sakamoto having a full season can definitely be one of those. You've got people like Ben Sheaf,
Right and Shims,
yeah.
right and Sims.
Yeah, I think Victor Torp as well. I think people forget about Torp, but I mean,
I
he's
thought
someone
in that
who,
West Brom game, I think it was February or March, I thought he looked really tidy on the ball. So hopefully a full pre-season and he could come to the fore.
yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, he probably didn't play as much as we would have liked last season, but yeah, with a full pre-season behind him, I can see him being a really like key player for us next year. So yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Definitely a much more balanced squad and team. A bit of depth is probably what we need as well. You know, a few we need to remember a few players have gone out. We lost obviously O'Hare, Godden, Kelly. I know Godden and Kelly didn't feature as much, but they're still, it was still depth that we had when we needed it, and we did use them a bit last season. So a little bit of depth is definitely what we need. You're always going to get some injuries, and there's obviously lots of midweek games, and there's maybe the cup again and things like that. So a bit of depth, I think, would make people feel a bit more comfortable going into the season.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably keeper, centre half, right back or right wing back, left back. I'm thinking probably another 5 additions, including another striker.
That's what it feels like to me. Yeah, at least like sort of four or 5 players, I think would put us in a really, really strong position. It seems like it's taking a bit longer to get business done this summer. I don't know whether the Euros is having an impact on that with players being all over the place, but it feels a little bit slower. But I'm sure it will come together. We seem to do transfers in bursts. It seems like nothing will happen for 2 weeks and then we'll sign like 3 in a day. So I'm sure there'll be a few more sort of around the corner, hopefully.
Yeah, I felt in the EFL probably yesterday and the day before, it was like there was this glut of transfers where every 10 minutes an EFL club was signing a player. So it wouldn't surprise me if things started to move forward a bit more, especially as the Euros are kind of coming to an end. Where was I? So I've asked you for your biggest reason to believe. What's your biggest reason for doubt?
Biggest reason for doubt. I guess if we didn't start quickly again, like you said, each year it does feel like we have a slow start. Like even the year we got into the playoffs, we had a slow start to the season, and we only really got going in, like, it felt like March, to be honest with you, that year. But yeah, I think just starting quickly is going to be really important. So that's my only thing. And obviously, when you sign players in the summer, you just hope that they'll turn out to be good signings. I guess if I was going to really be digging for something, that AD Vivesh moving on is something that's a bit of a concern or question mark for fans at the moment, just because he's been so instrumental in, he's been with us since League Two. He's helped us get all those promotions. He's been, the tactical mastermind behind it. You think of some of our biggest moments in the last few years. I mean, that Middlesbrough away game in the semi-final second leg, masterminded the tactics that night and things like that. You just think, hopefully, it wasn't all him, and that Robins was making some of the calls as well.
Yeah.
And I think when we've got two new coaches in, Reece Carr and George Boateng, so that'll be exciting to see how they get on. You just hope that all works well. And
Are you just recruiting assistants based on modes of transport?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it. But I think we're still probably on the lookout for an assistant manager, and I think that'll be quite a key role. And I think Robins is quite an interesting character. Like, he can be quite stubborn. So I don't know, him obviously gelling with someone and having someone that he works very, when it's worked so well for so many years, you just hope that that's not something that can disrupt things. I'm sure it won't. But if I had to think of something, then that's probably the only sort of lingering question mark on people's minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Too early for a prediction, I think, but give me a number between 1 and 10 to denote your level of optimism that your ambitions are going to be realised.
I'll probably go with like a 7 out of 10, which,
Okay.
yeah, just to be a little bit cautiously optimistic. No, I do feel I'm very, very excited for the new season. I think we're in a great position. We've got some great talent, a great squad. I think it's going to be a great season. My only thing with it is that, when expectation rises, then, it can, like last season, we went into the season because we'd made the playoffs the year before. Expectation just naturally rises. Everyone's been to Wembley. The fan base kind of grows a bit. You've got like 20,000 season ticket holders. There is that expectation. So I think the fans just need to be a little bit patient. And, if we lose 1-0 to Preston, which we probably will because we lose to them every year, it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of games to be played. And, I think, yeah, the season won't be won or lost around an individual game. But no, I feel pretty optimistic for the season. I think cautiously optimistic.
There you go. Cautiously optimistic. You can get away with it most ways with cautiously optimistic, can you? No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your help, Wardy. I really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for joining. Everyone go get subscribed to Sky Blues Extra. You can also subscribe to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify. Drop us a comment if to let me know where you think the Sky Blues are going to finish this season. And also drop us a review on Spotify if you've enjoyed this episode. Wardy, thank you so much. Thanks to you for watching at home, and we'll see you again very soon.